I am so excited to unpack some of this topic for you today, to talk about money, to talk about saving and budgeting in your photography business, because I know this can be not fun. I know this can be kind of a hang up for some creative entrepreneurs who would just like to focus on taking pictures. But if you can embrace this area of your business, it is going to pay off for you so much. So I want to unpack this, make this easier for you, and explain how you can start to think about money in your business and some really tangible takeaways for you to get organized with the money in your business, including a spreadsheet, free spreadsheet for you guys. But first, let's back up. Why? Why do we need to talk about saving and budgeting and money and all of that as photographers? Well, I know that pricing comes up a lot, right? You're always saying, how do I price my photography services? And I know I was looking the same stuff up, but if you don't know your business numbers, your cost of doing business, and your business financial goals, it's going to be super hard for me to tell you how to go ahead and price yourself. So those two things are directly related. They have a relationship. And ultimately, I want you to feel confident in your pricing and know that it's not just covering your cost of doing business, but that you're actually making a profit. So there are tons of reasons that you'll need to save as a photographer: saving for retirement, saving for that next lens or camera body that you really want, or being able to invest back into your business in the form of education or a course or coaching or mentorship. I think it's so important, and we need to be thinking about savings, but sometimes it can be a little confusing, like when your money's all in one big pile. So I want to give you some tips for how you can start to budget better, save more in your photography business, okay? So tip number one is to separate out your business and your personal money. This is going to give you so much clarity. This is actually going to make bookkeeping way easier, and it's going to make it so much easier for you to really see what you're working with. So the next thing after you've separated out your money is to start thinking about the money that comes in into buckets or percentages. This gave me so much clarity in my photography business because I didn't do this for a couple years and things were a little murky. And now I use this percentage system. So allocating out the percentages and creating those buckets is going to be really important. So let me just read off the buckets that I have here. You have your business expenses, you have taxes, you have salary, and you have profit. Now, the percentages could look a little something like this. Now, it's going to be specific to you, and we're going to unpack that, but it could look like this. Your business expenses are about 30%. Your taxes are anywhere from 15 to 30%. Salary for you from your business is 40%, and then the profit is 10%. So you're going to set these numbers based on your business. So what are the costs that you're already paying for your website and your booking software and maybe liability insurance or to get your camera cleaned every once in a while. Those are those costs, but you also have your goals. So your financial goals of what you need your business to pay you. Another bucket that you might want to consider as a photographer is a client albums, second shooter expense account. And so here's what I mean by this. A lot of times we create our packages and we might put an album in that package or a second shooter in that package or some prints or something like that, which is awesome. That's great. But what happens is you might book a couple of these and you forget about it and then you spend the money and the client comes back and they want the album. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have a couple $100 sitting around, or I do, but I was hoping to use it on something else. Then you get kind of in these pickles where people come back and they want their prints and they want their deliverables and you didn't set aside the money. So what I like to do is to have an expense account right there in this line with all the buckets. And one of them is for the second shooter. So when you book that wedding and you know they're going to get an album, they're going to get a second shooter, you set aside the amount you know you're going to need to spend on an assistant or on a second shooter or for the prints or for the album so that you have it there. The next thing I need to say is that you have to talk to a CPA about this. And the annoying thing is your taxes are going to vary. And I wish I could just tell you, okay, you have to save this much for taxes. That would be so nice, right? But it kind of depends on the way you form your business. So whether or not you're an LLC like I am, or you're an S Corp, or maybe you're still a sole proprietor, the way that your business is formed is going to affect your taxes. You also have state taxes. Here in Maryland, I have state income tax, but in some states like Florida, you don't have that. So your tax burden, I guess, should and will be different than mine. And it's totally depends on a lot of other things. Like if you have a spouse that makes money, if you have a day job, those kinds of things. So you have to talk to a CPA. And I think this is a really great thing to do, whether you are doing this by yourself in your business at first, getting someone to come in even just once a year to give you some advice and some help and answer questions, it's going to give you so much confidence in how you manage your money in your business for the rest of the year as well. So this whole conversation with like putting your money into buckets and assigning percentages and things like this actually came from a conversation that I had with my friend Val Duvick over on my podcast. So if you're a podcast person and you kind of want to hear more of this, more details of this, and think about this in your own business, I'll link that down below. Great conversation, really, really helpful for a creative mind to try to understand more about finances. Another helpful resource that you'll find has like a really similar structure is the Profit First model. So the Profit First book, one of my favorites, it's on my website. You guys know that I've talked about it here before, but just a fantastic way of explaining all these different bank accounts so that it's way less complicated. So I don't feel like we can talk about money and budgeting without also talking about some mindset blocks. I think there's some really common mindset blocks. I know that I've experienced them, and I know that a lot of my students do, especially as creatives. Money can be kind of a complicated thing. It's like not just because of the numbers, but also because of our minds. One really common mindset block that I hear is, I'm a creative, I'm not good with numbers, I can't understand numbers. And that is definitely a mindset block. This is a skill that you can learn just like you learned your camera, or just like you might learn to pose someone or Flash or editing inside of Lightroom. If you can edit inside of Lightroom, I promise you, you can figure out the money and your brain is capable of it. So another really common lie that we believe or mindset block is that we can only charge as much money as someone else that we see maybe in our area or online that we think is as good or better than us, and it keeps us capped. So we limit ourselves in terms of how much we will charge, even though our business may require us to charge more in order to be profitable, in order to reach our own business goals, but we cap our own prices mentally because we're looking to other people. This is a total mindset block, and it definitely doesn't have to be this way. Your prices should not be dependent on what I'm doing and what your friends are doing and what your neighbor's doing. It really needs to make sense for you and for your business. What you do in your business is completely unique. If you're having a hard time raising your prices or even getting past like mentally raising your prices, definitely revisit your client experience, revisit what it's like to work with you, and make sure that you elevate that experience as you elevate your prices. Make sure that it makes sense for those prices to go up. Now remember, as you do your finances, as you create a budget, you are not just pricing for your cost of doing business. We are also a business, so we have to make a profit. And so you'll hear a lot of times people talk about, okay, here's a savings tip or here's a budgeting tip as a photographer. And it hinges a lot on like what your monthly expenses are and your cost of doing business. But that's only one piece of the information. We also need to know what you want to make in your business. So I've got some spreadsheets from my friend Val where she provides, they're just completely free, and you can plug and play with your business expenses, with your savings goals, with what you have going on in your structure for your pricing. And she can really help you to see where you could allocate the money to the buckets that we talked about, where you could put those percentages so that you can start paying yourself and you can have the money set aside for taxes. And then you can sleep easy at night knowing that you are doing all that you should be doing and covering all of your bases. So budgeting as a photography business owner, this is something that I feel like never really goes away. We have to be making decisions constantly as a business owner as to how we're going to invest back into our business. What softwares are we going to subscribe to? What conferences are we going to attend? And what should the client gift cost versus the package they booked, right? Like these decisions, they never really go away. And I find that it gets easier when you do some of the things that I listed here. So when you separate out your business and your personal, when you separate out your account so that you can actually see separate from what you're going to pay your second shooter, separate from the taxes that are not your money, separate from the money that you need to pay yourself, what do you actually have to reinvest back into your business? This will give you so much clarity to be able to log into a bank account and see what's actually available for you to reinvest back into your business. This is a game changer. So that's my first tip as to how to budget in your business. But the other tip is when you're thinking about making an investment of any kind, buying something of any kind, I want you to ask yourself, how closely is this purchase tied to me making money? So there are some purchases that are directly tied, right? Like you getting liability insurance so that you can go photograph a wedding, directly tied. You having a camera body, directly tied. But then there's some things that are a little less tied. So you have to have that camera, but do you need to have the new camera bag? Ooh, I know, this one hurts. Like, do we need all the camera bags? So guilty of wanting all the camera bags. But a new camera bag is not directly tied to me making more money. But I have to subscribe to Lightroom so that I can edit photographs, so that I can make money. So look at that. That's not to say that you can't have things that are not directly tied, but just make sure that you're investing in yourself as the creative and yourself in a marketing sense, in a branding sense, and not just getting beautiful gear, bells and whistles, fancy things, and not booking the clients, right? So making sure that that is closely tied to the way you make money is a great way to gauge whether or not it's a business investment that you want to make now, or maybe you can just say, we'll pause on that. I'll get that after I've paid for these other things. So since we're on the topic of money, since we're talking about budgeting, you might be in a position where you need to book some more clients and you need to make some money quickly. So if you're sitting here wondering, okay, what are some ways that I can make money really, really fast as a photographer? I actually have a video all about this where I shared 8 ways that you can make money quickly as a photographer. Some of them are mine. Some of them are from fellow photo bosses in the Facebook group that they have used and are tried and true. All right, if you want to dig more into budgeting and hear a little bit more about this and what this could look like for you as a creative and get the spreadsheet that I talked about, head down to the description section. There is an entire blog post and a podcast episode devoted to this. So if you want to dive in deeper, there's more resources for you in the description section. Go ahead and click that video on your screen, get the 8 ways to start making money faster in your photography business, and I'll see you over there.